grown up around diversity, and so that's always been deeply rooted inside of me. Plus, my mother was German and my father was an American, so I'm kind of a mixed breed myself. And but I've always had a deeply rooted spiritual base, always since I was a young child, even when I never spoke about it. I had conversations with God and during my difficult times. And so I've always tried to seek out from him, even when I didn't make the right choices. Sometimes I did try to seek out his guidance. And I think that's what I've really kind of based my life on. And more recently, it's been deeply, deeply rooted in a solid foundation that's really helped.
Talk a little bit more about trusting instincts and your relationship with your instinct, and knowing that it's your North Star and you feel it in your stomach or however you feel it.
Yeah.
How do you handle instincts?
Women, I believe women have a natural instinct, a deeper core instinct than even men do. I believe that because we are driven by our heartbeat. We have this wonderful sense of feelings about other people, a capacity to understand them in ways that perhaps men can't. And so when I really began to conform my conscience, let's say, in a right order of positive choices, of healing myself, of seeking direction that is rooted deeply in God who created me, I was able to then purify my instincts. I've always had a strong instinct. Don't do this, don't do that. And sometimes I didn't listen. There's always that voice in your head, that voice in your conscience that's trying to guide you. And sometimes we listen and sometimes we don't. And it's been my experience when I didn't listen, it was a fatal mistake for me. And so I started purifying my conscience, and that helped my instincts evolve to a very powerful potential that was always there.
That is so interesting when we talk about trusting our instincts and we talk about where we are. And of course, being a journalist, not only in, local television news, but also international news and documentaries and everything. What were some of the things, if you don't mind sharing, when you knew deep down inside that this was the way to do, or this was the decision to make, and you decided not to listen for whatever reason? Can you share what was the end result?
Oh, the end result was tragedy. The end result was tragedy. When I decided to go into journalism, originally I had been studying medicine, and I had considered being a doctor, but I chose to get into the nursing program, but it didn't feel right. And I literally went home, I was transferring colleges, opened the book, and communication sprang out at me. And so I transferred to New Orleans, where I live, and went to Loyola and got my job straight out of college. And I was trained for 8 years or so, 9 years in the secular media. And I think it wasn't that there was a bad thing that happened then, but what I did was I did a documentary that really profoundly impacted my spiritual life. It was a deep conversion. And I knew I could no longer stay in what I considered to be kind of a vacuous arena, because I was always having to, stick a mic in people's faces during the most difficult times in their lives. And while there's a story there, that really didn't speak to my spirit. And so then I ended up going into a television ministry that took me around the world to do everything I wanted to do at the network level. But I was able to, go to Russia and Lithuania and Ukraine and all these countries where terrible things happened to people, but I was able to elevate the viewers by showing them how their faith lives, how their belief in themselves helped bring them out of this darkness into the light. But what I didn't do, I have 5 sons now. And midway through all that, I was exhausted. I was taking care of the kids. I was trying to be this perfect television personality, a good Catholic Christian. I was trying to be, I had this persona of perfection up, but I was exhausted. Running kids to carpools, running kids to the doctor, finding babysitters when I had to go out of town because I was the primary parent at home. And there was a point when I wanted to quit and just stay home with my kids. I knew I was going to miss the TV career, but my husband was pressuring me to make more money, to pay the sitters. The person I was working with wanted me to stay on that treadmill. And I couldn't at that time, because I had no healthy boundaries, say, no, I'm going to quit. I need this. I sent these two men, my husband and this person I was working with, to dinner, and I let them negotiate my future contract without me there. And I told myself, if they were happy, I'd be happy. And that was a mistake.
Does it surprise you that you abdicated your power in that way?
No, you know why? Because as a military brat, we are raised having to accept the choice that is thrown at us. I moved 7 times in the first 16 years of my life. I moved in the summer of my senior year in high school. It didn't matter how I felt, because we had to move. That's the life of a soldier's family. And so I had learned to take orders and to give away my power to powerful men. And I had to learn, what I really felt, what I really liked, and then I had to heal from those past wounds so that I could make the healthiest choices that were going to be good for my life as a woman, as a mother, and as a professional woman.
It's so interesting that you're sharing that. And first of all, thank you for doing that, because sometimes people, they feel our identity is one way. This is the outside world looking at us,
right,
especially if you're on television, especially if you have a high profile position, and they don't always know the inner struggle or the story. At what point have you become courageous enough to share your story, share the identity that's more in line with who you are created to be?
I literally fell apart, and I literally almost died. When you start struggling in life sometimes and you don't have healthy coping mechanisms, which I did not have, the easiest thing for a woman to do sometimes is to open a bottle of wine and have a glass of alcohol at night, right? And it mesmerizes you. It's like the velvet devil. It kind of sinks in and makes you feel better, and all your troubles can go away. And so I almost killed myself on alcohol, because there came a point when no one was seeing me. I tried to explain it. I tried to explain my pain the best I could, but they didn't see me, and they didn't really know how to help me. So I gave up on myself. So it was facing that near death, and it had to come, because sometimes the choices that we've made, the person that we built inside, is not the authentic person that we're designed to be, right? And we have given that part away. So I had to lose literally everything, just about everything in almost my life, in order to rebuild, resuscitate, and be transformed to who I am today, happy, joyous, and free.
Well, here's my question too. So if I were to stick a microphone in your face and say,
what you are doing?
What is your story, Mary Lou McCall? What is your story today?
My story today is a story of hope. It's a story of transformation. It's a story of love, unconditional love, agape love. It's a story of being transformed by a power that I didn't understand, looked at me as his beloved. I didn't need another human being in the world. And I didn't realize that when I was created out of this agape, amazing love, just because of love, not because I had to do anything to prove myself, not because I had to do anything to prove myself and worthy of love. I was enough because I was a human life who he created in his image and likeness. So my life now is rooted in that. And so now I can go out and share with other women, because you'd be surprised how many women just like me are hiding behind these masks, and they're afraid to say how they feel, because so often, and I experience this, women are judged more harshly than males are, because there's still that glass ceiling, there's still that dominant male authority culture out there. And this is not an attack against men. I love men. It's just a fact. And sometimes as women, that's why I love the show that you're doing. It's so brilliant. we have to band together. We have
Yes.
to help one another. And traditionally in the past, women have not done that. Now I have 5 sons, so I understand the male psyche pretty well, but they're so different. My kids can get mad and storm upstairs and then come back 10 minutes later and say, hey, what's for dinner? And I'm looking at them because I'm a girl and I'm still mad. Women tend to stay stuck longer than men do. They just brush it off. They say, hey, buddy, and knock them on the shoulder and they move on from there. So we women have got to understand that we can be each other's best friends. And if I support you, you'll support me, right? And not in competition.
Right. I'm so glad that you have said that, because what we have done, I think, as women
Yeah.
is bought into the lie. It was a lie that we don't get along. It's a lie that we don't support each other. And we kept believing it and saying it. So now it has become supposedly the truth.
That's
But
right.
it's not true. It is not true. We can help each other step into our power. If you had a tip or two or something that's practical, particularly for someone who's saying, Mary Lou, you are listening to my heart. You are inside my chest. And this is exactly how I have been feeling. I have been feeling unheard. I have been almost been invisible, even though I am visible out there in the world. No one really sees me or gets me. How would you help them or suggest something to help them step into their power?
How much time do we have so I can gauge this?
Well, okay. Give me 1 or 2.
Okay. What I would suggest to women is, I wrote something down here, and I have to get my glasses on. But I would say that my advice for women is to daily meditate, get into a quiet zone, because we're physical and metaphysical beings, and we heal ourselves through this meditation, through this prayer. But then we can open ourselves up to the potential that God has for us. I also think we have to assess our emotional IQ, what's driving us, because when our core is wounded, then sometimes we make decisions that are unhealthy for ourselves, and then decisions for others that are unhealthy. So access your emotional IQ. And another thing is cultivate women friends that you can trust, friends that will be there for you. And I would add to that too, cross the cultural lines. Make an effort to have friends that don't look like you, that may not have the same skin color, that may not be from the same country, because we can't understand people unless we have a friendship with them and they share with us and we share with them. And that's how we're going to cultivate this capacity to unite together in our nation. And I wanted to tell you, do you want to know what a powerhouse woman is for me?
Yes, I would love that definition.
Okay. I wrote it down. The powerhouse woman embodies fearless, authentic transparency that is deeply rooted in honest humility. And what I mean by that is, if I'm fearless, then that means I faced myself, the good, the bad, the ugly, right? The unhealthy decisions, the healthy decisions. And I've been able to look at them and say, okay, what did I learn from this? And if I'm transparent because of that, that means I'm willing to share my mistakes and my successes with someone else. I'm not looking at them as something that's humiliating or people are going to think badly about me. I know that they had a purpose for my life. And then if we are rooted in honest humility, that means I'm teachable. And as a woman, I want to continue being teachable. There was a point in my life when I was scared to admit my weaknesses. I was scared to show I wasn't perfect, even though I felt imperfect inside. But now if somebody gives me a suggestion, I tell them thank you. And I think about it, and I want to learn and I want to grow, because there's this vast potential that women have. And we have this maternal instinct, and it doesn't mean you have to have children. We have this maternal instinct, the qualities of mothering other women. And I think it's really essential, Monica, because you're doing that. You have this maternal instinct. You're going to have all these children out there now, all these female children. Watch out.
Our powerhouse women children. There you go. We're almost out of time, but I always asking my guests now, if you could share the best piece of advice you ever received, and if you could share with us who gave you that advice.
The best, I really thought about it, and truly the best advice I received was, I think it was in around 2012 when I was going through this transformation and healing. And I went to this healing mass, And this priest put his hand on my head and he told me a lot of things that he shouldn't have known that were right on target. But he said, and things that would happen in the future. And he said, but first, let yourself be restored. So if you're feeling down, if you're feeling humiliated, if you're feeling weak, get to those core wounds, heal from those core wounds, and I promise you, you'll come out of this stronger, with more courage and more confidence and joy than you ever imagined.
Wow, that is powerful, a powerful piece of advice. So you've talked a little bit about it. One nugget that you could give our Powerhouse Women audience, what would that piece of advice be for them, especially those who are at this crossroads right now, where they know that their new identity, their pivot, they're shifting what they've wanted to do for a long time. The moment is now, and they're not feeling as clear. They're not feeling as strong and convicted about it, and maybe not even feeling courageous about it. What piece of advice would you give them?
I would say, think it through, listen to your core, and then have someone you absolutely trust that you can talk it over with and set a plan in motion. Don't be afraid. If not today, sometimes we have to learn patience and virtue. I had to learn that. And so if not today, you can still start planning today, moving toward that goal, because that voice in there is telling you something. And if you meditate every day, you will know the right moment to take action.
Wow, that is indeed powerful. Mary Lou Call, you are a speaker and a writer, and you write beautifully. That's one of the things
Thank
I've
you.
always loved about it. Tell us quickly before we leave about your Miracle Moments blog.
Well, I started it during a period that was very difficult, and I noticed my sister would call me from California. How do you pour out all that every single day like that? And it just sort of came to me. Now I haven't written on it in a while because I'm in school, at Notre Dame Seminary, and I've been having to write a lot of papers. But I'm gonna start it up again because I'm about to graduate, and it's really about experiences I've had with my children, with myself. It's not a forum to criticize anyone else. It's just to draw out issues that I face, that I see in the world, and help hopefully give people the idea that every moment can be a miracle of change in you. Every moment can be a miracle of change in you. We may be getting older, but my idea of getting older is maybe our bodies are getting wrinkly and, things are falling apart. But I'm hoping that the inner core is illuminated, that people see a luminosity, that I'm a lamppost. And that's what I try to be in the blog as well, a lamppost
Wow.
for others.
Miracles for you too. .blogspot.com. Mary Lou, you are incredible. Thank you so much for being with us. And you know what I'd love to challenge our audience right now is to continue the conversation, right, Mary Lou? Just to continue to talk about this and support each other, especially as powerhouse women.
I agree 100%. And I'm very grateful for you, for our friendship, but I'm also grateful that you're doing this for women. I think it's brilliant.
Well, I'm going to take brilliant. Hold on, Mary Lou. Thank you so much for being with us. That is our show. And we thank you for joining us today. Keep the conversation going and know that your best life is still ahead. Thank you for watching the Powerhouse Woman Show. Make sure you're a subscriber and join us live every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Central for the Powerhouse Woman Show.